Hey everyone, in this video, we're going to build this inventory management system. So you can see here what the home page looks like. And I'll go ahead and walk through what we'll do in this. So we hit get started now. I'm not currently logged in, so it'll take me to a login page. Let's go ahead and create an account. So over here, I'll go ahead and create an account. I'll call this user1, and we'll give it an email, user1 at test.com. We'll go to password as well. And there we go. Now we are automatically signed in. I can sign out. I can sign in with that user as well. I go in here and do user1 and type in my password. So we have a fully working authentication system. And then once we log in, it'll take us to this dashboard page here. And right now there's no data in my database, so it just shows up empty. We hit the plus button, and then from here we can add a new inventory item, and we have categories down here. So we have things like, right now I just put 3 categories in my database for now for testing. But we'll get to adding those in once we get to that point in the tutorial. But we have packaging, transportation, and maintenance. So maybe we'll have transportation, and inventory will be like company vehicles. So we'll have cars. And we'll have maybe 5 cars. We can submit that. And then it adds it here. We can come here and we can add another one. We'll do packaging. And we'll just say tape, quantity of 100. And we'll submit that. Now, when we add these items here, you'll see that we have this edit button that come back and edit the item, as well as the delete to delete it. And you'll also notice here our quantities right now are in green. We have a number where if it goes below that number, it'll show up red. So it'll kind of give us an alert if we have low inventory. So if I change this here to 1, so we have 1 car in stock. Now we have this shows up red here, and we have an alert at the top here that says 1 item has low inventory. So we're kind of automatically checking to see if our inventory gets low. And once it does, it throws an alert for us. So we can keep track of inventory and what we need to restock. And of course, we can hit delete. And it'll give us, are you sure we're going to delete? And we'll hit delete, and then it will delete it. So that's basically what we're doing here. But that's really it. Let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this development server here I have running. And I will open up Sublime, and we'll get started. Okay, so now I just have this empty kind of project open here, and we'll go ahead and get started. So I'm going to right click here and do open folder. And then inside here, I'm going to right click and do open in terminal. And then I will have a terminal window open. Let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. We'll zoom in just a little bit so you can see a little better. Should be good. Now we'll go ahead and get started. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and create a virtual environment. I have virtual env installed, so I'm going to use that. Virtual env, env. And then you'll see we have this env folder. I'll do source env bin/activate. If you're on Windows, you'll make sure you do, I believe it's scripts bin/scripts/activate, but you can look that up online to find that. Now, once we have this activate here, I can go ahead and do a pip install Django. Install Django. There we go. And then I can go ahead and do a Django admin start project. And I'll call this, this inventory underscore management. And then I have this inventory management. I can cd into inventory management. And there was our manage.py. So I'll run a Python 3 manage.py start app. Call this inventory. This is where all of our inventory information will go. And there we go. Now, if you wanted to, we could create a separate users app to handle authentication. But to keep this simple, I'm going to put it all inside of this inventory app. Okay. So now with those things created, now we have our inventory folder and an inventory management folder. We should be ready to get started. So first thing I'll do is I'll do a Python 3 manage.py, and we'll do migrate to migrate the initial changes. And then I'll do a Python 3 manage.py create super user to create a super user to access the admin panel. I'll call it admin. I'll give it a password. And now once we have that user created, I'm going to go ahead and do a Python 3 manage py run server. And now we can go ahead and open up our project here, refresh the page. And if we go back to just localhost 8000, we now get our basic kind of Django setup here. So we know everything's working. Okay, perfect. Now we have our app set up. We can go ahead and actually start building things. Let's go ahead and start by first adding our inventory app to our settings.py file. So we go to settings.py, I'll scroll down here and I'll find my installed apps and I'll add inventory to the top of the list. And we'll save that. And now we should be able to start adding these to our inventory page and things should work correctly. Go inside our views.py. We can then go ahead and set up our first class, our first view class. And what we'll do here is we'll do a class. We'll call this index, and this will be our homepage. So this will be like that kind of basic homepage with some text with our navbar and everything, so you can sign up or get started now to jump into the dashboard. And so our index page will inherit from a Django generic view that we'll call template view. Now, what this will allow us to do is just set a template name, and it'll just render that template for us. So it kind of just helps make this a little bit easier for us to do if we need just something simple functionality like this. So do template underscore name equals inventory slash index.html. Here at the top here, I'm going to do from Django.views.generic import template view. And then just to make sure everything's working, I'm going to go ahead and create a basic inventory template and just put some text on there so we know things are set up and working correctly. So if I go into, or I guess I'll put this inside of the kind of the standard default location for templates in Django, which is inside of our app here. I'll create a new folder, and we'll call this templates. Inside templates, I'll create another folder. I'll call this users, or I'll call this inventory, the name of our app. We have templates, and inside there we have inventory, and inside of here we have a new file, and this will be our actual template file. So we'll call this index.html. Now just to test this out, I'm going to do an h1, I'm going to do index. And if this loads, then we know things are working correctly. Now that I have that set up, I need to go ahead and create a URL to actually point to this page so we know at what URL pattern to load this template and actually load this view in. So I'm going to go ahead and create inside of my inventory app, I'll create another file. I'm going to save this as urls.py. And this will be very similar to the one in our root folder here, but I'm going to separate out just to make it a little more cleaner, I guess, make it easier to kind of see what we're doing inside of this app here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy in our two import lines and this URL patterns list right here. And then this first one, I can delete this and change this. So we'll do at the root path, we want to go ahead and use our index view. So from dot views import index. And down here, and this index right here, of course, is the name of this file right here. So since we're using a class here, we need to load it in a special way down here. So we can do index, but we also need to do it dot as underscore view since we are loading in a class view. And then we can go just give this a name of index. And this is how we point the root path to our index view. Now this file is still not being used yet though, so we need to actually add it to our root URLs as well. So that will be the one inside of our inventory management folder. You'll see this big file here is already created for us. What we can do here is we can add in that file we just created, and it will automatically load in all those views for us, which is just right now just our root page. But there'll be much more once we actually get started. So we'll go ahead and add a path here at the root path. We'll do include, and we'll do inventory.urls. I need to import include up here. Include. So what we're saying here is saying when we go to localhost 8000, that's the root path. So we're on the root path. Go ahead and include this file. And so all these URLs inside this file right here will be added in into this file. So inside of here, we have another root path here that loads the index page. So when we have the root, localhost 8000, that's our root path. So once we hit it, it'll hit this one right here. And they'll then go into this file because we're including this file. We'll go in this file, and it'll then find the root path inside of here, and then it'll load this index page. So that's kind of how this works to load this page. Hopefully that makes sense. Now that's all set up, I should be able to jump into my app here, refresh the page, and I see index showing up right here. So I know that is working and that I have my first view and URL all set up and working correctly. Okay, now that we have all of that set up, the next step will be to fill out the navigation bar. So we go to the browser, we go to localhost 8000, wrong screen over here. We have our index page. We want to go ahead and add in our bootstrap that we're going to use for this project, as well as create a navigation bar so we can actually build out the authentication pages. So first things first, we're going to add our bootstrap, and we're going to use Bootswash for this. So if we go to search for Bootswash, go to bootswash.com. You'll see here we have all these different templates we can choose from. And for this project, I'm going to go use Minty. You're welcome to use whatever you want, but I'm going to use this one right here. So if you click on it, you can see the different kind of styles you have for all the different stuff, navs, forms, different headers and text and cards and whatever else. Once you find one you like, what you can do is click this drop down right here, right click on bootstrap.min.css, open link a new tab. And then over here, you'll see we have all of our CSS for this, and I can just copy this link up here, copy that, and we can use this. So now, where are we going to put this at? Well, right now, we have, instead of our inventory, we have a templates, inventory, and index. So this is where we create our first index page. I'm going to create a new file in here and save this as base.html. And this will be the base file for all of our templates. So I can go ahead and create an HTML document like this. And Sublime is just a exclamation point and then the tab. And now that I have this, I can add in the bootstrap in here. So below the meta tag here, I'm going to create a link, href being the link I copied, and then we'll do rel equals style sheet, and that should be good. And make sure this is inside the head too as well. Make sure it's outside this head tag right here. But that should be good like that. We can save that. And now let's go ahead and use this on our index page. So what I can do is down here in the body, I can use a Django template tag. And this will allow us to kind of write logic into our templates. And this first logic we want is to create a content block. And this content block will be something we'll use here in a second. So first we'll go ahead and just create it. And template tags in Django start with a curly brace and a percent sign, and you close it off with a percent sign and a curly brace. Now in the middle here, I'm going to write block content, create a content block named content, and I'm also going to close it off down here. So I'll go ahead and do in block content. And save that. We'll go into our index page now. And up here, I'm going to go ahead and do extends, very top of the file, extends inventory / the template we just created, base.html. Now below here, I'm going to go ahead and create that content block that I created in the other file. So we'll do block with the same name, in this case content. And then down here, I'm going to close it off below my h1 tag. In block content. We save that. We'll come back to our file here, or to our browser, refresh the page, and I will see immediately the text changed. And so what happened was we added our bootstrap or our boot swatch files to our page here. And so real quick, what we did here was we created this base HTML, we created this content block, and we wrapped our index around this content block. So now what we're doing when we load this page is we're taking everything inside of this H1, and we're replacing this block right here with that HTML. So anything we put inside of here will show up. So I do a p tag here, the test, we save that, come back here, reload the page. That shows up in our content block. If we put something below it here, refresh the page, you'll notice it doesn't show up. And now why is that? Because it's outside of this content block. I can create another content block down here and then put that inside of it and it would show up. But in this case, we only have one block here, this one right here. So that's kind of what we're doing. We're just replacing everything inside that content block with whatever we have inside of here. And this extends line tells us what our template we want to add this to. So it kind of creates like a parent template, being this one right here, and a child template with this index page, if that makes sense. Okay, there we go. So that's how we set up our bootstrap. I'm going to go ahead and also add in a script tag for bootstrap as well, so that any JavaScript will work as well. I'm going to go ahead and just copy this in and add it down here. You can get this from the repository in the description. But this is just going to make sure that things like the hamburger menu or something along those lines will work as well. So we'll make sure we add that in as well. But for this example here, it shouldn't do anything. Everything should still work the same. Okay. Now with that done, let's go ahead and build out our navbar. So there's a bunch of ways we could do this, but for this project here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another file and then include it into this file. If you wanted to, you could just go ahead and just build the navbar right here and kind of build out above this content block, and it would show up on every page. But to make things a little cleaner, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to use a different template tag called include. So we can type include, and then in single quotes here, we can put inventory/navigation.html. Now I can create that template over here. So I create a new file, save it as navigation.html. And now everything I put inside this file will show up in place of that line there. So now this line here will be replaced with this file and all the HTML inside of that file. So in this file, we can build our navigation bar. So I'll do a nav, and this will be kind of like a bootstrap nav bar. So I'll use lots of classes here. I'm not going to really go over what they all do. You can find them in the documentation, and you can find examples on Bootstrap's docs. But it will just set things up with the Bootstrap classes to make it look like a nav bar is all it's really doing. So we'll go ahead and create a nav element with the classes of navbar, navbar-expand, -large, and a bg-light. Inside of here, I'm going to go ahead and create a div with a class of container-fluid. And inside of here, I'm going to create an a tag with a class of navbar-brand, which is like our kind of our main text in the navbar. And we can do an href. This will be set to our index page. So we can go ahead and just do a new tag here, which is URL. Now I'll explain this here in a second, but URL index. And then we'll put the text of inventory manager. Okay. There we go. So this tag here, what are we doing here? So URL tag and templates replace this whole thing with a URL link. In this case, we're grabbing the index page. So this name right here matches up in our URLs with our name value. So name equals index. So it grabs this name and it matches it with this name right here. And that's what that's doing. Now below this a tag here, we're going to go ahead and work on our collapsible menu. So if we go too small, we're going to create a little button here to expand it. And we'll create that here with button class equaling navbar toggler with a type equaling button. So data.bs.toggle equals collapse data-bs-target equals navbar nav area-controls equals navbar nav. And a few more settings here, area-expanded equaling false. I'll add a label as well, equals toggle navigation. This all comes from the Bootstrap docs if you wanted to know more about that. It's not super important. I'll just copy it in for now. Now inside of here, we're going to create a span. And this will have a class of navbar toggler-icon. This will be our actual hamburger menu icon right here. We close off that span right there. Close off the button. Okay. Now that we have that button for our classical menu set up, let's go ahead now and work on our actual navbar. So we can do a div, a class of collapse, and do navbar -collapse. And we'll do a justify content end. Then we'll add an ID on here equaling navbar nav. And this ID should match up with this one up here as well. Make sure that matches. And now inside this div here, I'll create a UL. And this UL will have a class of navbar nav. Inside the UL here, we're going to create a list item. And for now, I'm going to create one placeholder list item. Eventually, we're going to create more items, and it's going to be different based on if the user's logged in or not logged in. But for now, as a placeholder, just so we have something to work off of, I'm going to create a single link item in here with a class of nav-item. Inside this li, I'm going to create an a tag, and I'm going to create a class on that of nav-link. This will have an href that right now points to nowhere. We haven't created any pages yet. And the placeholder text now I'll put sign in just for now, just as a kind of like a placeholder. And then have the li. I'll close off the ul, and we close off the div and the other div and the navbar. We save that now and go back to our browser. Refresh the page here. You'll see we have our inventory manager brand text here. You can see it's bigger. It's kind of darker and bigger. A link that goes to the index page, which we're on it, so it doesn't go anywhere right now, and the sign in button right now that goes in nowhere. This is how our navbar is set up, and it's all working correctly. And for that hamburger stuff I was talking about in the classable navbar that we had up here with this button and stuff, if you come back here and if I just like open up the dev tools and pull this way in, you'll notice that it changes at a certain point to this little button here. You click it, and it creates a drop down menu from there. So we have kind of a responsive navbar as well. At a certain point, you can see here it switches back to just a sign in button from that little hamburger icon button. So there we go. Now we have a navbar set up and ready to go. And from here, we can now go ahead and build our index page out and build out our navbar with our authentication pages. Okay, now that we have that basic setup done, let's go ahead and actually build out the views and the forms, everything we need to actually make the login, logout, and signup pages work. So we'll start by building a form. So we're going to need a register form. And we're going to use a built-in form in Django called the user creation form to kind of give us a starting point. So to get started on this, what we'll do is inside of our inventory app, create a new file, and we'll save this as forms.py. Now inside of here, I'm going to import a few things. First, from Django, import forms. Then I'll do from Django, Django.contrib.auth.models, import user. And then we'll do from Django.contrib.auth.forms, import user creation forms, creation form, not plural. And that should be it. And then down here, we'll go ahead and create our form. So we'll do a class of user register form. So we'll go ahead and call it. And we want to go ahead and inherit from that user creation form. So in parentheses, we'll put user creation form. And now we need two things here. The first thing we need is to create a class meta inside of here. So we create this meta inner class. And from here, we can define our model that we'll use for this, as well as the fields we want to show in our form. So the model will be the user model because we're saving new users. So this will be user, which should be what we imported up at the top. And the fields, we want to go ahead and grab a few of the fields. There's two ways we can do this. You can go ahead and just do a dot underscore. You can either put quotes and do 2 underscores, all 2 underscores. But in this case, I want to go ahead and specify specific fields. So I'll create a list and then put my fields inside of here. We want username. We want email. We want 2 password fields. So there's password and then confirm password. So we have password 1 and then password 2. And those are our fields. Okay, and that should be good. Now we do want one more thing here. So this email field does not come by default. So we're going to go ahead and add that. So up here at the top, we're going to create a new field called email. So this is equal to forms.email field, just like that. And that's all we need. And that is our form. So that's our form we'll use to actually sign up users. Okay, now we have our form created. Let's go ahead and create a view for this. So we'll go into our views and we'll go ahead here and create a new one. So we'll do class sign up view. And this will be from a generic view class. We want to go ahead and import that though. So up here at the top, views.generic, we want to go ahead and add one more import of just view. And then we'll use that view class right here. And this view class will give us access to different methods based on the HTTP method. So for example, we'll have a get method for all get requests. We'll have a post method for all post requests. And now inside the arguments, we want to add self and request to both of these. And for now, I'm going to go ahead and just put a pass on this bottom one until we get to it and work on our get method. So for the get method, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and create an instance of that form we just created, and we're going to go ahead and render it in a template. And so this will be when the user first goes to the page, we want to go ahead and just show the form for them to fill out. And the post method will be when they actually hit submit. So that's where our two actions are on this sign up view. And so first we want to go ahead and just create the form and render it. So form equals, this will be user register form. Now we'll create an instance of our form. And then we can go ahead and return render the template. So return render. And we'll pass in requests first. Then we'll do, I'll create this template in a second. For now, we'll just set the name. We'll call it signup.html. And then inside the context, we want to put our form. So put a key of form, set that equal to our form that we just created on the line above. And that's it for our get method. Now our post method will require a little bit more logic, and we'll work on that now. So this is what we want to do when we submit the form. So once the user fills in their information and presses register or submit or sign up or whatever the form button says, we want to check if the form is valid. If it is, we want to save that form and log the user in. So this will take a few different steps here. First, you want to go ahead and create an instance of the form with the form data. So I'll type this out here and I'll explain it in a second. So we'll do user register form, and then in parentheses here, we'll do request.post. So in Django, there's two types of forms. We have unbounded forms, like this one up here, and bounded forms, like this one down here. Our unbounded forms are just an empty form with no data. These bounded forms have this data bounded to it. In this case, it's the data from the request body, and this is a post request. So we can get the post request body by doing request.post, just like that. And now we have this form. This form will now contain all of the data the user submitted. So we can take that data, we can check if it's valid. So if form.is_valid, we do a form.save to save that form. And then we want to go ahead and authenticate the user. So we'll do user equals authenticate, which will import it from the top, authenticate. And we want to authenticate like that. Go ahead and import that from the top. We'll do that in a second though. Let's go ahead and finish this out. So authenticate. Inside the function here, we want to pass in the username and the password. So username equals, and we can get it from the form by doing form.cleanedData, and the key being the name of the field. So in our form here, we have a field of username, and we have a field of password1 and password2. So I'm going to grab the username and the password1 to log them in. So do username equals username and password equals form.cleanedData password1. Just like that. And then we'll call another function we need to import as well called login, and we'll use the request and the user we just authenticated. So let's go ahead and import those two functions at the top before we forget. So this will be from django.contrib.auth, import, authenticate, and login. Okay, and now we logged in the user. The last step here is to redirect to the index page. So once we log them in, we'll return them back just to the home page of the inventory management system. So we'll do return redirect, and we'll pass an index. And this will be the name of the URL route. So in here, we have this URL route of index, pass the name in here, and that will redirect us to that page. We also want to go ahead and import that as well. That comes from the shortcuts, Django.shortcuts. So we can add it right here, redirect, just like that. And that should be good. Now, if the form is not valid, we're going to go ahead and just re-render the blank form. This shouldn't happen, but in case there's an issue, we'll do this so it doesn't just throw an error. So we'll do return, render, request, inventory/signup.html. And once again, we'll add in the form and the form. There we go. Okay, and that is our post method. So then our get method, we're just returning empty form. Our post method, we're getting the data we submitted, checking it's valid, saving it, and then authenticating and logging in the user if it is valid. And that should be it for that. Now we can go ahead and create our templates, and then we should be good to go. So inside of our templates folder here, we'll go inventory, and we'll create new files in here. We'll save one here as signup.html. Now we're going to go ahead and extend our base template. Extends inventory/base.html. And then we'll create our content block, and then, this is block content, not content block. block content, like that, and then end block content. Okay, and now we can go ahead and build out our form. And so I'm going to use a bunch of Bootstrap styles for this. I'm not going to go over each of them, but if you know Bootstrap, it should be fairly straightforward. I'm going to go and create a row and create a column. This will go almost the entire width of the screen, but not quite the entire width. On small screens, on medium screens, it will go a little under half. Add some margin on the x-axis to center it, and a little bit on the top as well to give some padding there, or some margin there. Now we'll go ahead and create an H1. This will be sign up. And then, sure, close off that div before I forget. But below the H1, we're going to do a few different things. First, we're going to go ahead and do if form.errors. If there was an error with the form, we're going to show them here. This goes from the Django documentation, so I'm just going to type it in real quick. For field in form, checking each field in the form, and checking for each error on the field. So for error in field.errors, create a div, a class of alert and alert-danger. We'll create a strong tag here. We'll put it inside of here. So we can put in variables using double curly braces, and this will be the error with the HTML escaped. So add a filter there. Don't worry too much about this if you don't understand what's going on here. This comes from the docs on how to handle errors, so we're just going to put that in there to show us any errors if we need to. And then we go ahead and close off all these fors and everything. So then we'll do some infors in for, and that should be good there. And then we'll add one more. So down here, we'll add in checking for non-field errors. So we'll add in one more for statement here, for error in form.non-field errors. And then once again, we will put this right here, copy that, and put that right here. And that goes right there, just like that. And for, and then we also want to go ahead and end the if statement as well from back here, in that right here, end if. And that all covers the error messages. Don't worry too much if you don't understand what it's doing. It's just listing out all the different error messages if there are any. And that way, if we have an error, we can see what it is. Okay, now below that, we want to actually show our actual form itself. So we create a form tag with a method of post. And now inside this form, we wanted to do a few things. First, we want to put a CSRF token. And then we want to go ahead and show our form. So we have two different types of ways of inserting data into a Django template. The first one is using curly brace and a %sign, and then closing off with a % and curly brace. This will create a tag. This is a reserved keyword we can use, like extends or create a content block to do that. We can put variables in using double curly braces. And in our case, we passed in this value form into our context. So now in this template, we have access to a variable named form, which will be our actual form. So in here, I'll type form, then show the form. And then below this, I want to go ahead and put a button to actually submit the form. So we'll do a button here. We'll put a class of btn and btn-primary, a type equaling submit, and then we'll do sign up and close that off just like that. Okay, and we'll save that. And that should be it for our template here. Let's go ahead now and create a URL pattern, and then we'll test this out. So we'll go to our urls.py, and we'll add a sign up route here. So we'll do a path. This will be to sign up, a trailing slash, and we'll do our sign up view, which we need to import. First, we'll do sign up view as underscore view, once again, because it's a class-based view, sign up view, and we'll give it a name here equaling to sign up. Just like that. And there we go. Now we come back here, refresh the page, go to /sign up, and we're getting error saying user register form is not defined. We must have forgot to import that. So back in our views here, We have our user registered form, but we did not import that from our form. So we'll do from dot forms import user registered form. Okay. And there we go. There's our form. Now, of course, it doesn't look very pretty right now, and we'll fix that here in a second, but at least now we have our form showing. Let's go ahead and add Christie Forms to make this form look good. So if you do a Google search for Christie Forms, you should get a link here that takes you to the installation guide. Click on installation. You can see we can do pip install this to install it. So I'll do that real quick. I'll stop my server. I'll paste that in there and run that. And then once we have that installed, we want to add Christie Forms to our apps. So I'll copy this, go back to the code, go into our settings.py, come down to our installed apps, and we'll paste that right there. Save that. And then finally, we want to go ahead and add a template pack. So we want to go down here and we want to find Bootstrap 5 right here. And there's a link right here. It will take us to this Christie Bootstrap 5 page. And then we can run this pip install line to install it. Copy that. Back here, paste that in there, run that. Okay. And then we want to go ahead and add Christie Bootstrap 5 also to our installed apps. So I'll copy that. Go back to our installed apps here and put that right there. Now with those things done, we should be able to use Christie Forms to make this look pretty. So what we can do now is we can go back to our code here and we can go to our HTML page. And at the top, right below our extends line, we're going to add an additional tag. So we're going to add a tag to load in the Christie Forms tags. So we'll do load Christie Forms tags. And then we'll add the filter to our form. Now there's different ways of doing this. This is the easiest way. According to the docs, there's a better way of doing it, but this is the most simple way to get us up and running with the form. And we don't really need to customize this, so I'm going to use this version for this tutorial. But we can add a pipe character to add a filter and write crispy. So a filter will just apply this to our form. And so we're just applying the Christie filter to make our form look good. Come back here, refresh the page. I need to run my server again. Refresh the page. Crispy. Oh, I forgot to add the Christie template pack. Okay, so we forgot one setup line. So we went back here to our docs. There was one thing I forgot. So if you go to installation, go down to template packs, I need to add Bootstrap 5 to the template pack. So let's see here, right here. So these two lines right here, we want to go ahead and copy these and add these to our settings as well. Go to our settings.py, add it to the bottom, scroll down here, and we'll put it right there like that. And we'll save that. Now we'll come back here, refresh the page, and there we go. And now already our form looks so much better. So that's a quick and easy way to get forms looking good in Django, and that's what we're going to do for this tutorial. Okay, so now with that done, we can go and test it out. So we just do a test one at example.com, add a password, and there we go. And now we should be signed in. If we went to /admin, it's going to say we are authenticated as test one, but not authorized to access the page. So we do know from here that we are signed in correctly. Okay, perfect. So that's all we need to check. We correctly logged in after signing the user up. Now we can go ahead and move on to the login and the logout pages. Okay, so what we'll do now, go back to the code, and we'll go ahead and add in our additional pages. Now we don't need to actually create a route and everything for this. The rest of these are going to be built into, or kind of built into Django already. So we need to import them and add our routes to our URLs and then create the templates for them. That's all we need to do for these additional pages. So if we go to our urls.py instead of our app, the inventory app, we can import our auth views up here. So I'll do from django.contrib.auth import views as auth_views. Now we can use this auth_views dot whatever to then use the different built-in authentication views in Django. So I'll create a path of login, and we'll do auth_views dot login view dot add_view. And then inside of the constructor here, we'll do template_name equals inventory slash login.html. We'll then do a name equals login, and then we'll do a path of logout for our logout view. We'll do an auth underscore views dot logout view dot adds underscore view, and do a name equaling to logout. And then once again, we'll need to pass in our template into the constructor here. So do a template name equals inventory slash logout.html. Okay, we'll put our trailing slash here, and that should be it. Okay, so we will save that, and now we'll create these two templates. So we created, inside of our constructor here, we added a login and a logout template. Let's go ahead and make those real quick. Let's create a new file. We'll save this as login.html, and this one we'll add in extends inventory slash base.html, and I'll extend our base template. Once again, we want to go ahead and load in our Crispy forms because we'll have a login form here. Load Crispy forms tags, and then we'll go create our content block here. So do block contents, in block contents, div a class of row, div a class of column dash 11, column dash md dash 4, mx dash auto, mt dash 5, and then we'll go and do an h1. We'll do a log in. We'll do a form, a method of post, and then inside of here, we're going to go ahead and add our CSRF token. This is required by Django. CSRF token for any. This is required by Django for any form that's using the post method. So we are in this case. So make sure we add that there. And then we'll add in our form here. Now we don't need to actually create the view for this because the form is already built in to that view. So we already have access to the same form variable we had before. And we can add the Crispy filter to make that look prettier, just like that. Then we'll go and add a button. And this button will say sign in. And then on the class here, we'll add a btn dash outline dash secondary, just like that. And now we need to close everything off. So close off div, or close the form, I mean. And then close off the divs. A div there and a div there. Okay. And we're going to add one more thing here. We want to add a little button that says, oh, you need an account, click here to sign up or something. And that will go at the bottom below the form. So we'll add a div with a class of a padding top of 3 to add some space. And now inside of here, we will create a small tag with the class of text-muted to make it kind of a grayer color. And we'll do need and account. And add ahref equaling to a URL tag. So this will allow us to insert a Django URL. So we'll do URL and then the name of the URL, sign up, which matches, should match this one right here. So this name right here, sign up, matches with our thing in the string here, sign up. Okay, so that's good. And then we'll add a class of margin left dash 2, and we'll close off that. We'll do sign up, close off the a tag, close off the small tag, and that should be good. We'll save that. Okay, now we can go ahead and test out by going to our login.html page. So we'll do /login, and there we go. Now we can go ahead and type in test1 and type in our password. And it logs us in. Now, the problem here is our redirect URL doesn't exist. It's trying to go to account/profile. So we need to change how we're redirecting. And we can do that if we go into our code and go to our settings.py and add a new setting. I'll put here at the bottom, we will add a login redirect URL equaling /dashboard, just like that. And that should fix that page. So now we come back here and we come back. We go to do a refresh here. We'll do test 1 and add in our password back in. It now takes us to the dashboard page. Now we've not created that dashboard page yet, so it's still not going to work. But then now when we create that dashboard page, this will actually work. So we're all set up there. Okay, next step is to create the logout page. So like before, we already have the view in by default. So we'll create a new file here. We'll save this as logout.html. We'll do extends inventory / base.html. And then we'll go ahead and do block content, do end block content, and now inside of here, this will be much more simple. We'll have a div, the class of row. We will have a div of a class of column-11, and then column-md-4. Once again, mx-auto, nt-5, same as before. Inside of here, we will have an h2. It says you have been logged out, and then below that we will have a div the class of border-top pt-3, and then we'll do a small tag inside of here, and inside the small tag we'll have a link, but on the small tag I'll add a class of text-muted to make it kind of like a gray color again. And now inside of here we'll have a link, a href equaling a URL login. Do log in again, and close out that, and close out the divs, div there, and a div there. Maybe one more. Yes. Yep. Okay. There we go. And we'll save that, and that should be it. Now, if we go to /logout, it says we've been logged out. We can log in again by clicking login again. It takes us to the login page, and that's all working fine. Perfect. Now, the last thing we want to do to finish up all of this authentication stuff is to actually add it to our Navbar. So right now, all we have is this broken link that goes for the sign-in page. It doesn't go anywhere. So let's go ahead and add everything and make it change. The links change based on if we're logged in or not logged in. So I will go to my Navbar in the code. So that's in templates, navigation.html. And then I will find where that link is right here. Okay, so we have this URL tag right here. And inside this URL tag, we have these li links. I'm going to add an if statement around these LIs that will set the list items based on if they're logged in or not logged in. Do if user.is authenticated. We want to add in a sign out and a sign in. I'm also going to go ahead and add the username as well, just so we have that. So we'll add, first link will be going nowhere. It'll just be the username. So we can add the username by using 2 curly braces and doing user.username. And this user is already in there by default, just like this if statement up here. So that's already comes in the request anyway. So we have that data available to us. And then below that li, we're going to put one for sign out right here. And this will be sign out, change the text. And the href for this one will be a URL tag once again. So the URL of logout, just like that. And I'll go and just indent these in. And then down here, we'll have an else. Copy that, and we'll paste it right here. And now instead of a username and a sign out, we want to sign in and a sign up. So I'll go ahead and make the first one sign in. Sign in. This will be sign in. And we'll copy one more. And actually it's not sign in, it's log in. Let's fix that real quick. Log in. And then we'll put one more right here, and this will be sign up. This will be sign up. There we go. So now actually before I forget, let's go ahead and close off this if statement as well. Go ahead and end if right down here. Okay, so now with that added, we have a check here. If the user is logged in, we'll show their username and a log out button or sign out button. If they're not logged in, this else will run. and we'll put the sign in button and the sign up button. So that changes based on whether or not they are logged in or not. Come back to our page here, refresh the page. Now we're getting a sign up and a sign in. So I'll click sign in. I'll sign in with my test user, test1, add in the password. And okay, so it went there, but we don't have that page yet. So we'll go back to the home page, and I will see it says test1 and sign out. I'll click sign out. It says you've been logged out, and you can see here it changed again. I can log in again right here. It takes me back to this page. So this is all working great. The only thing we're missing right now is on our sign up page, we want a button that takes us back to the login page if we already have an account. So let's go ahead and add that in, and then this should all be wrapped up. So we'll go to our sign up page right here. And I guess I'll just go ahead and go to my login page actually and just copy this to make it a little easier. We'll just copy this right here, go to our sign up, and we will paste that. And we'll change this from need an account to already have an account, already have an account. And then we'll change this to sign in, and change the text here to sign in and save that. There we go. The page. Oh, it's not sign in, it's login. Made that mistake again. Let's change this here to log in. Save that. Come back here and try that again. And there we go. Now it says already have an account, sign in, need an account, sign up. Just like that. I don't know why my button here is red though. That doesn't seem right. I'm gonna go ahead and change that. I don't like how that button's red. Let's actually make that change. So we'll put it back to the primary color for login. So instead of outline secondary, this will be primary or BTN primary, like that. I think it looks a little better. But yeah, there we go. So now we have all of this working. So that is it for our authentication stuff. Now we can work on the rest of the application. Okay, now let's go ahead and work on this home page first. So what we want now, we want a little simple home page that will take us to our dashboard when we hit like go to dashboard or wherever we want to put the button as. And then that will take us to a separate page where we'll actually have the dashboard and the main part of our application. So let's go to build out this landing page now. Open up the code. We kind of already have this set up here with the index page. Now we need to actually add some information here other than just index. So I'm going to remove this H1. I'm going to start by creating a div. Inside this div here, I'm going to go ahead and add some bootstrap styles. So we'll do a div with a class of row, and then we'll add a column inside of that div. We'll have a class of column-sm-11. So on small screens, we'll take up almost the whole width. And the column-md-4 to make it a little less than half on larger screens. mx-auto to center this on the x-axis, and add a little bit of top margin to get it away from the top of our screen. And now inside of here, we want two different things. We're going to put an H1, and I'm going to add a class on this of fw-light, and this will make the font weight light, so make it like that thinner, lighter font. And then inside of here, I'm going to do track and manage your inventory. And below that, I'll put a p tag, and this will be another font weight of light. And on this one, I'm going to do kind of like a secondary thing of keep track of your inventory and receive quantity alerts for low inventory, or something along those lines. It could be kind of whatever you want it to be. And then down here, we'll create another div, and this will have our button. So we'll have a button in here for going to our dashboard. That page does not exist yet. So for now, I'm going to do just an href going nowhere. And I'll come back and fix this link once we create that page. We'll do a class of btn and btn-primary to make it look like a button. And we'll do get started now. And then if we're logged in here, this should take us to our dashboard. If we're not logged in, it should redirect us to a login page. And we'll add that logic here in a little bit. But that should work for this page. Let's go and take a look at it and see what it looks like. And there we go. So now we have our header here and our secondary text here. And on small screens, it goes down like this. And that looks okay. We could use some more padding here and maybe make it a little bit wider on bigger screens so we don't have it break like this. So let's make a few changes there. Let's change this here from -4 to -5 for medium-sized screens to make it a little bit wider on larger screens. And then maybe add some margin or padding, maybe padding x-3. And actually, I'm gonna leave this at 4 for now. We save this. Now let's check it and see what it looks like. If I go here and refresh the page, that looks fine. I'd say if we go down to very small screens, I'd say that looks fine, like that. We'll leave like that for now. You can adjust those how you'd like to if you'd like to change it, but for now, I'm gonna leave mine looking like this. Now let's go ahead and build out this page right here. So we click this button, it will actually take us somewhere. So for that, we'll need to build out our dashboard, and that will be a separate page where we need to set up a template, a URL, and a view, and all that sort of stuff. So we'll start by creating a view. And this view requires some additional things later on for some of our alerts, but for now, we'll start with just a very simple view. And we're gonna use our generic view class. So we're gonna use this view right here for this class. So we'll create a class, we'll call it dashboard. It will inherit from our generic view class. It'll have a get method, and this will be for just showing everything on the page, and that's all we're gonna need for this view. So this will just be just to render the template on the screen. We'll pass in self and request as arguments. And inside of here, for now, we're just gonna go ahead and return render a template, and we'll come back and add more to this later. But for now, we'll just do that to get our template showing so we can actually build out the view. So return render requests inventory / dashboard.html, and that will be our template name, which we'll create here in a second. And for now, that'll be it. We'll save that. Now we'll create a URL for this view. And this will be inside of our app URLs here. So we'll put this right below our index, create a path of dashboard. And we will do, we'll add our dashboard to our imports up here. And we will use that view right here, dashboard.as_view. And we'll give it a name equaling to dashboard. Just like that. Make sure you add our trailing comma and save that. Now let's go ahead and create a template. So inside of our inventory templates here, we'll create a new file, and we'll save this as dashboard.html. And we'll start by inheriting our base template. So we'll do extends inventory /base.html. And inside of here, we will do block content. And down here, we will do in block content. And now we can go ahead and build out a very basic view here without any real data. So for now, we're going to add in a row and add in like a button to add a new item. So pretty much what we want to build here is we want to build like a table with a button to add a new inventory item, and our table will list all of our inventory items. From there, we can add ways to edit it and do other things in that table. But that's kind of what the setup we want here. So to make this, let's start by creating a div, add a class of row. Then we'll create another div, and we'll add a column here. So this will be a column-md-10, column-11 for smaller ones. And we'll do an mx-auto. Actually, for now, we'll do a column of 12 for now. We can change that if it's too close to the edge, but for now, we'll do a column of 12, mx-auto, and a margin top -5. Inside of this column here, we want to create a flex box that spans the entire width of our column. We want to push this to the end. So this button will go to the other end of our screen on this case. So to do this, we create a div with a class of flex to create a display of flex, to create a flex box. And then we can do justify content end. And then inside of our div here, we'll have an anchor tag with an href that points to, for now, nothing. And we'll come back, we'll add that link in later. Then we'll do a class of btn-primary to make it look like a button. And this will have just a plus symbol. And this will be a way to add new items. Then we'll go ahead and close off this div for our flexbox. And then below this, we can go ahead and create our table. And this table will list out all of our inventory items. So we'll do a table with a class of table, table-hover, table-striped, And that will just do some bootstrap styles to allow us to hover over our table items, and it will kind of like change the color, the shading, I guess. And the stripe will give us the kind of alternate white gray shading for our table. Now inside of this table here, we'll first create a table head, and this is just basic HTML for creating a table. So do a table head, the table row, and this row here will have all of our headers. So we'll do a TH for our table header, scope equaling to column, and then we'll add in all of our different headers. So we'll have an ID, and then we'll go ahead and just copy this down a few times. We'll copy it down 5 times. So we'll do 6 total, I guess. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And these last 2 will be empty, and this will be for our buttons we're going to put in our table. So there'll be no headers for those. And then below our ID, or next to, I should say, we'll have a name. Next to our name, we'll have a quantity, but QTY for that. And then next to that, we'll have the category that we're going to be putting this item in. And those are our headers. And then we can go ahead and close off the table head right there. Open up a table body, T-body. And inside of here, we will list out our items. But right now, we don't have any items. So I'm going to go ahead and just create an empty table. And we'll come back and we'll add the additional data in after that. So to create just an empty table, we can create a table row right here. Inside of here, we can do a head for that row, the scope of row, and we can just put just a minus sign for now. And now below this, we can use our table cells, doing TD to put our table data in, and we can put minuses right here. And I'll do this for each of our headers we have up here. So we need 6 total ones. So we'll go and just copy this down like that, and we'll save that. And now we'll go and close off all of our table stuff here. So we'll close off the table, close off the div, and we might have one more div. No, that should be it. Okay, we'll save that. And now we can go ahead and check our dashboard page, see if we can correctly load it and display this empty table. So back in our browser, we'll go to /dashboard. And there we go. So now we have all of our stuff showing here. Okay, and you'll notice our button though is on the left, not the right. If we look in our elements, we can see that we have an issue right here. If you hover over this little eye, you can see display block property prevents specified content from having an effect. So we're still having a display set to block right now, so we need to fix that. So looking around the documentation, I was using an old version of the Flexbox I was used to with Bootstrap. The new version is D-Flex. You can see in the Bootstrap 5 docs here. So I need to update that. That's why this button is on the left and not the right. So back in the code here, I need to change flex to D-Flex. I'll come back, refresh the page, and that fixes that problem now. And now this is working. You can see down here that error message went away, and the justified content end is being applied. So there was just an issue there. I forgot about the new version of Bootstrap, but that should update that, fix that. Okay. Now that done, this should be looking the way we want it to look. The next step will be to actually set up our items and put some items in our database so we can actually display them on this page. So back in the code here, this will require us to do a few things. First, it will require us to actually add a model, and then we can use that model to then get all of those items in our view and then display them in our template. So taking that step by step, first step is to go to our models.py and create a new inventory item model. And this will hold all of our data we want to be able to show on the table there. So we'll create a new class. We'll call it inventory item. This will inherit from models.model. This will be a basic Bootstrap or basic Django model here. So we'll do a name. This will equal models.char field. Max length equaling 200. We'll do a quantity equals models.integer field. Then we'll do a category equals models.foreign key. And we'll do a foreign key of category, which we'll create here in a second. And then on delete, when we delete the category, let's go ahead and just delete all of our category objects as well. So we can go ahead and just do models.cascade to then delete all of those as well. Next, we'll do a date created. This will be models.date time field. Auto now add equaling true. And then this auto now add will automatically add our date time at the current time when we create it. So we don't need to manually fill this field in. It will automatically set it for us. Then we want a user model or user field as well. And this will be linked to a user model object. So do models.foreign key once again. And this will be our user model, which we'll need to import. So do user, comma, and on delete. We'll go ahead and delete it as well. On delete equals models.cascade. So I guess to explain this better here, what we're doing here is if we delete a user, we're going to delete all the inventory items for that user as well. We don't want to keep those around. We may want to actually change our category to maybe sets null, I think it is. Let me double check that in the documentation. Yep, it's set null, and we'll just add blank equals true and null equals true as well. Okay, there we go. And now we have the user done. That finishes up this model. Just to make it easier to kind of view the model, I'm going to override the str method. So double underscore str double underscore, passing in self as an argument. And what this will do is when we actually display the model somewhere, it will return this as the name. So let's go ahead and just show the actual name field itself. So down here, I'll do return self.name to actually show that as the name of the model or the model item here. Okay, now we need to go ahead and create this category model as well, and we need to import the user. So easy one first is to import the user. So we'll do that first from django.contrib.auth.models import user. And then down here in the file, we'll create a new category model. So do class of category models.model. And then we'll go ahead and add one field here of a name. And this will just give us our category, give our category a name. So we'll do a models.char field, max length equaling to 200. And then once again, I'm going to go ahead and override the str method, def double underscore str double underscore, passing in self as an argument. We'll return self.name once again. And save that. And there we go. Those should be our models here. Let's go ahead and migrate these changes over. So I'll open up my terminal here. Let's stop this. And let's go ahead and increase the size as well. So let's go into here and bump this up a little bit so it's a little easier to see. And we'll do a Python 3 manage.py make migrations. And we create both our models. Then we'll go ahead and migrate those changes to our database. And there we go. And you can see that our inventory migrations did happen. So that's good. Let's go ahead and rerun our server now. And we should be good here. Minimize this. And that should be it for our models. Let's go ahead now and grab all of our items in our view, and we can add that to our template context to actually show it in our template. So we'll go into our views, we'll find our dashboard view. And now before we return render the template, we can go ahead and get the items. So we can do items equals inventory item, which I'll import in a second, .objects.filter. And we want to get all the items for this logged in user. So we can filter by the user, and we want to get the logged in user. We can get that with self.request.user.id. And then we're going to go ahead and order them by the ID. So we'll do order by the ID field, just like that. So that will get all of our users, or that will get all of our inventory items for this user, and then order them by the ID on the inventory item. Now that we have those items, we can add it to the context of our template, and we can do this by adding an additional argument to our return render statement here. I will add a dictionary. We'll create a key, and this will be the name that we have in our template. In this case, will be items, and we'll set it equal just to items. Now, when we return render our template, we'll have access to this list of, or this query set, I should say, I guess, of items saved in this variable called items. So if we go into our template, our dashboard template right here, we can add some logic here to show our items. So what we'll do is we'll check that query set. If it's empty, we're going to show just our empty table like this. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of one of these. I don't think I need that last one. We're going to go ahead and show just this. If we do have items, we're going to loop through them and show the item in the row instead. So first we can create an if statement, and we can do this with our template syntax. So for the braces, %signs, we can do if items, and we can do a filter of length. This will get the number of items in our query set. So in this case, if it's equal to 0, so we do that equal 0. If it is equal to 0, let's go ahead and just show this we have here, just an empty table row. That way there's some data, something showing, and just nothing, instead of just nothing showing. But if we do have data, and this if statement up here turns out to be false, we can put an else block right down here. Or instead of else, what we'll do is we'll just do an end if. So at the end of every if statement, we have to put an end if to close it off. So we'll put this here if it's equal to nothing, because it won't show anything otherwise. So then down here, we can go ahead and just loop over items and show anything here. And if there's nothing, this logic here will not run. So it works well either way. You could do an else. I'm going to go ahead and just do it this way. So for item in items. And I guess before I explain this items is the key from our context. That's where we're getting this items value from. So for item in items, in that list we got from our view, we'll go ahead and create a row for each item. So we'll do a tr, create a row. Inside of here, we'll create a head, the scope of row. And now we can put in our different item details by using 2 curly braces to put in a variable. And we can grab it off of this item value right here. So in this case, the first row will map to our ID. So we can go ahead and do item.id to show the ID. Below that, we can go ahead and actually forgot to close off this one. There we go. And below that, we can go ahead and create a TD. And this will be our next column. In this case, is our name. So we can do, once again, these are all matching our models. So we have a name field. So we can go ahead and do 2 curly braces to put in a variable and do item.name. And now below this, we'll have another TD. This will be for our quantity. So once again, we can look at our models, and we have a quantity field as well. So we can go ahead and do two curly braces to put in an ID, do item.quantity. And we continue down, and we can do next being our category, which will be our final value we need to put in here. And to get our categories to be slightly different, we got to do our 2 curly braces again like we did before, but we got to do item dot our field name. So in this case, we have a category field, but this is a foreign key, so it's another model kind of put on here. So we can do item dot category dot the name of the field in the category you want to show. In this case, this category model is down here. We have one field of name, so we can do item.category.name to get the name of the category. And that will go right here. There we go, item.category.name. Perfect. We can go ahead now and close off this for loop. Every time we open up a for or if statement, we have to close it off with an end if or an end for. So we'll do end for down here to close off that for loop. And that should be it. So now if I go back here, refresh the page, we're getting an error saying inventory item is not defined because I forgot to import it. So up here at the top of our views, we do from.models import inventory item. And back here, refresh the page, and now we still have this empty table. We are missing one thing here because I have an empty field. I'll go ahead and put back that empty category. So back inside of our dashboard here, or empty row here. So let's copy one more row. I didn't think we need the extra dash there though, so I'm gonna go ahead and just get rid of the dash maybe and see how that looks. Refresh the page. There we go. I think that looks better. The 2 dashes here just seem kind of weird to me, so we'll keep the empty category or keep the empty row there, so it still has a complete row, but we'll get rid of the dash. Okay, and now since we have no items, this is there's nothing showing still. So our if statement is working correctly, and we are showing this empty one if the length is 0. Let's go ahead and add this to our admin page. We can log into our admin page, and then we can add some items there to show. And later on, we'll add that plus button to add items, but for now, we'll add it to the admin page to make that easy for us. So let's go into admin.py, and we'll do a from.models import inventory item. And then down here, we will do admin.site.register inventory item like that. And I guess we'll go ahead and register our category as well. We'll need to add categories too. Admin.site.register category. There we go. And now we'll jump back into our terminal. We'll stop the server. Let's go ahead now and do a Python 3 manage.py create super user. I don't remember if I did this yet or not. Yes, we did. Okay, so we'll go ahead and stop that. We don't need to do that. If you haven't created a super user from earlier on, make sure you do that, but it looks like I already did. Let's go ahead now and log in with that user. So do the /admin. And now you'll see we have inventory items and categories. It messed up the plural form of categories. There's a way to fix that. I forget. If you check in the documentation, just do a search for that. Fix admin plural. For gross name, that's what it is. Okay, yeah, so we need to do this. So back inside of our model here, we can add a meta class on here. We'll just copy this. Verbose name plural. Is that there? Equals categories. Save that. Back here, refresh the page. And there we go. Now that's fixed. Categories. Okay. So now we can go ahead and first we'll create a category, I guess. We'll add this and we'll call this transportation. For example, maybe we'll add another one of raw materials. And then we'll go into inventory items here. We'll create a new inventory item and we'll be like trucks quantity of 5, or do truck quantity of 5, transportation user. We can do just the admin user for now, or we'll make it the test 1 user, I guess. We'll save that. We'll add one more. We'll say steel quantity of 100, raw materials user of test 1. And we'll save that. And now if we go back, we log out and we go back to our site and we sign in with our test 1 user, test 1, and we add in our password. Let's try it again. There we go. Okay, so now you'll see now, because we do have data showing up, we are showing our name of our item, our quantities right here, and then the categories right here. So it's all working correctly. We are missing our last table rows there. That's because I just didn't add them in yet. Those will be buttons, but for now, there's nothing there. So for the time being, let's just add some empty ones so we have a full row showing. Back in dashboard, I'll go ahead and just create 2 empty ones, a TD and a TD, and save that. Okay, back here, refresh the page, and there we go. Okay, So now we have the full row showing. You can see our hover effects working and our alternate colors showing there. So everything's looking good. We're showing up our data right here. And now as a quick test, let's log out as our test one, log in with our admin, and make sure nothing's showing up to show that our filter is working correctly. So we'll log in as our admin user. And nothing's showing up. Okay, perfect. So now since nothing's showing here, we log in as admin, but it is showing up when we log in as test one. We know our filter is working and we know we're showing our items correctly. We'll go ahead and sign out and sign back in with our test one so we can see our data again. Test one, our password. And now we should be good to continue. Okay, so now that we have that done, we're getting pretty close. But back on the homepage here, one thing we need to do is make this button work, first of all. Right now it goes nowhere. But also, if we're not logged in like we aren't currently, we want to make sure this dashboard page is not accessible because it doesn't really make any sense to not show anything here. We want this to redirect to a login page where they can log in and then they'll actually see the inventory for the logged in user. So first things first, let's make this button work. So we'll go to our index page, and on the index page here, we have this href for the button, and then we'll use a Django template tag again. So we'll use curly braces, 2% size to put in a template tag. This will be the URL tag, and then we put in the name of the URL, which in this case is dashboard, and we'll double check. Go to our urls.py. We do have a name equals dashboard, so we should be good there. Now back here, refresh the page, click on the button. Now it takes us here. Now let's go ahead and restrict this to only logged in users. So right now we're not logged in. Click this button, it should take us to a login page instead of the dashboard. This is pretty easy in Django. We have access to a mixin that'll make this super easy for us. So we go to our views.py. At the very top, we're gonna go ahead and import something new. And this will come from Django.auth or .contrib.auth.mixins import login required mixin. We'll save that, and then we'll come down here to our right here to our dashboard, and then right after, and right now we have our view class, and right before this view class, we want to put the login required mixin in. So right here we'll do login required mixin like that. Save that. Come back here, refresh the page, click on the Start Now button. And now you'll see here, it took us to this path here, accounts/login with our next to dashboard. And this does not exist. This path is wrong. And that's just because it is the kind of default, Django default, but our login page does not have this accounts app. So to fix this, what we can do is we can go to our settings.py and override that default setting. So right here we have this login redirect URL. Below this, we'll add a login URL, login_URL, equaling to login. We'll save that and come back to our browser, refresh the page, or let's go back and then refresh the page. Now we click on this, and now it takes us to this login page, and you'll see we have this next equals dashboard up here. So say I log in with our admin user. It now logs us in with the admin user and automatically takes us to the dashboard, just like it should be working. And now if I go back here and I click on this, now that I'm logged in, we just go straight there. So that's all working as it should be. Okay, perfect. So now we have our basic inventory set up and working, and we have this home page set up and working now too. Let's go ahead now and work on making this plus button work to actually allow us to add a new inventory item from a form here. So to do this, it'll be pretty straightforward and pretty simple, similar to other things we've done before. We'll first go and create a view for this. So we'll go into our views.py, and we'll add a new view here at the bottom. We'll do a class of add item. We'll just do add item, I guess. And we'll want to go ahead and make sure they're logged in first. And then we're going to go ahead and use a create view, and we'll import that from the top. So Django has these built-in views that make all of this much easier for us. They have a create view that allows us just to pass in a few properties, and then we can automatically get all the logic to create a new Django model object. So as long as you're creating something that you have an actual Django model for, which in this case we have this inventory item for, this will work, and it'll be a much easier way instead of writing everything manually. So we can get this up here from Django.views.generic. Should be a create view inside of here. Okay, we'll save that, and down here. Now for this add item view, we need to pass in a few of those properties, like I said, to make this work. So the first one we'll need is the model. So the model for this will be that inventory item model that I showed earlier. Next, we want a form class. Now this will be, we'll call it inventory item form. We'll need to create this. This will be the actual form that displays that the user can fill out to create a new item. We'll create that in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and just continue on for now. Next, you need a template name, and this will be the name of the HTML template that will render to the screen. So this will be inventory / I'll call it item_form.html. And once again, I'll create that in a second. Next, you want to add a success URL. Now, what the success URL will do is it will redirect us once we're done. So we're going to use something called reverse lazy and pass in dashboard. And this will redirect us. This reverse lazy is a built-in function in Django that will redirect us back to our dashboard page. And we can import that from the top here from Django.urls. So I'll add another import from Django.urls import reverse lazy. Okay, there we go. We're going to add two functions as well. So first thing we want to do, we want to add our categories to the context because we want the user to be able to select a category. So we need to make sure we get the category data and add it to our view. And we can do this by overriding a built-in function on this view called getContextData. So if you remember from earlier, just type this out real quick. getContextData as in self ** quarks. So if you remember from earlier, we passed in different context dictionaries. And so since we're not return rendering a template manually here, we need to make sure we override the function that sets this value for us. And that's what this getContextData is doing. So first thing we want to do is get the context data it's already set. So we'll do context equals super, to call the super class, the create view class, dot get context data. It'll pass in ** quarks. And then we'll do context categories. This is equal to categories, capital categories, or category.objects.all. And then we'll return that context value. So all we're doing here is we're getting the original context, and then we're just adding a value to it. So we're not overriding the whole thing. We just want to get the value and then add this new categories key to the context dictionary and set the value equal to all of the category objects from our database. And then we'll return that context value or context dictionary after we make that change. Okay, perfect. And now that function is all we need there. And then we'll go ahead and create one more function, and we'll override the form valid function. So we'll do def form _ valid, self, and form. And in this one, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and set the user on the form. So we look at our models, for example, for our inventory item, we have this user field. And so we want to make sure we set this by default. We don't want the user to set the user because it's just be the user who's logged in. So instead of having them manually set their own user, which would make no sense, what we can do instead is we can call this form valid function. We can then set the form instance user value to be the logged in user, and then return that that call with the new form to validate the form with the user object in it. That way we don't get an error saying user needs to be filled out or whatever the error message would be. So to do this, we can do form.instance to get this instance of the form, .user to get the user field of that form, and set it equal to self.request.user. Next, we can go and return super, get a superclass.formValid function with this new form instance that has the user set. And that will correctly validate that form for us. Okay, and that should be it for our add item view. You can see here, this is much easier than having to write the logic to actually render the templates and everything. So hopefully that makes sense. If not, let me know in the comments. I'll try to explain things better. But all we're doing there, we're setting the model, form class, template name, success URL, and overriding two functions to make sure the the data we need in our template is correct and that our form validates correctly with the user being automatically selected. Okay, now that we've done all that, we need to import some things. So first thing let's check, is inventory item imported? It is. Okay, we need to create an inventory item form next. So we already have a forms.py for our register form. Let's go ahead and just add a new form here. So down here, we'll go ahead and do a class of inventory item form, and then we will inherit from forms.model form. This will be just a model form, and what model form will be is just a built-in class that allows us to create a form that will save to a specific model. In our case, it will be our inventory item model. So this will also make things a little easier for us. All we need to do is first create a meta class, do class meta, and inside this meta class here, we'll set a model. This will be the model we want to save to, in this case, the inventory item model. Next, we'll set the fields. And for the fields, we could do a couple different things. We could do _all to get all of the fields on this model, but we don't want to do that because if you look at our model, there'd be an issue here because we don't want the user to be selected we don't want the user to have a field to be selected. We're selecting that automatically in our view. So instead of doing that, let's go ahead and just pick out the fields we want, which would be name, quantity, and category, because date created is being set automatically as well. Okay, so back in our forms.py here, instead of doing all, we'll create a list and we'll pass in those fields: name, quantity, and category. Now there's one more thing we want to do here. We want to go ahead and set this category field manually. So looking at our models.py, we do have this category for foreign key, but we're going to go ahead and make sure we have a model choice field there, which is a built-in field in our Django form. And so we can update forms or add new fields or whatever else by putting all of them above our meta class. So above our meta class here, we can create a new category variable here. We'll do forms.model choice field. And I'll explain this more in a second, but first we need to pass in a query set equal to category.objects.all and do initial set equal to 0. Now, if we jump into the Django documentation to look at form fields, we can scroll down here and we can see there's a model choice field on the side here. And this will default to a select widget and allows us to normalize a model instance. So it allows us to select a model instance. And you'll see down here, suitable for representing a foreign key. And looking at our model over here, you'll see that we are in fact using a foreign key for this category, which is why this field will work well for us. So if you need to change form fields, you can find it all in the Django documentation. There's a whole bunch of them you can choose from. In this case, this model choice field will help us handle relationships. And if we wanted to, we could select multiple, but in this case, we're not doing that. So that's what that model choice field is doing. Hopefully that makes sense and that clears up why we're using that there. But now with that category added, our category field should work as expected. We then have our quantity and our name field as well, and that should be everything we need for our form, and that is it. So we'll go back to our views now, and we'll keep going down the line here. So next we need to go ahead and create a template. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new template, file, new file, save this as, make sure the names match, item form.html, I think is what we called it. Let's go ahead and double check. Item form HTML, yep, that should be it. Okay. And now for this form here. First things first, we'll extend the base template like we did before. So extends inventory/base.html. We also make sure we load in our crispy forms tags that we use on our authentication forms. So we do load crispy forms tags. Then we'll create our content block again, or block content. So block content. Then we'll do in block content, just like that. And now inside of here, we want a few things. First, at the very top, let's put a back button to go back to the dashboard. So this will be inside of the create item. Let's say we change our mind, we don't want to create one. We need a back button just so we can go back. So we'll add a link here with an href going to a Django template. That will be the URL template here, or the URL, it's going to a Django template tag, which will be our URL tag. So we'll do URL, pass in dashboard as the name in quotes, and then we will put some classes on this. So we'll do a class of btn-outline-primary, and then we'll do some margin on the y-axis of 3 to take it away from the top of the page, and a margin on the x-axis of 4 to move it away from the very edge on the width of the page. And then we'll add some text of go back, and then we'll add a closing a tag right there. Perfect. Next, we'll add a div with a class of row, and this will be just our basic bootstrap again. A div of a class of column-11, column-md-4, mx-auto, and then empty-5, just like that. Close off that div, close off that div. Inside of our column here, let's go ahead and put a header first. So in this first header column, we'll have just an h1. This h1 will say inventory item, and then below this h1, let's go ahead and create a form. So do a form with a method of post, because we're going to post this, create a new item in the database. Since we're doing a post method in Django, we need to add our CSRF token, which we can do in Django pretty easily by just putting a template tag and doing CSRF_token. Add that into our form. And then we'll go ahead and put in our form value. Form, we'll add a filter of crispy to make it look better. And then we'll add another div down here. This div will contain our submit button. Let's put a class of margin top -3 to space it out a little bit. Then we'll create a new button with a class of btn-primary, and then we'll say add item. Close off that button tag, close off the div. Let's close off the form right here, and then close off the two divs right there. Okay, and by looking at this, you may notice that our form variable here, we didn't actually add that anywhere. Looking at our view, nowhere in here do we add a context value of form. That comes by default. We're already doing that by default with our context data. We don't need to actually do that. So you'll have access to the form by default using the variable name form, which is what we used here. Okay, and that should be good. And then our success URL should work, and that should be it. Okay, now we'll come back to our page here, refresh the page. Check the console. Category is not defined, so I forgot one thing here. I'm using this category up here at the top. I'm only importing the inventory item, so let's go ahead and import our category as well. I also need to do that in our forms as well. I'm using the category right here as well, so we will import that as well from .models import category like that. Refresh the page. So we're getting errors still. Inventory items not defined. Okay, so I forgot my imports in my forms.py here. We'll add an inventory item as well. And now that we have our form created, we need to make sure we import it in our views.py as well. So we can we already have this from.forms line here. We can add in our inventory item form, import that in there. And there we go. Now it's loading again. If you go start now, it takes us here. This button won't work yet. So let's go ahead now and add a URL and make this button work. And that should be the last step to making this page work. So we'll go to our urls.py and we will add another link right down here. We'll do a path of add-item, we'll say, the trailing slash. Then we'll do add item.as_view, and we'll make sure to import that at the top here. Right up here, we'll do add item. And then we'll add a name on this view as well. And the name will equal just add-item. Make Make sure we add our trailing comma there, save that. Now back in our dashboard HTML, we can add in right here. So we have just this href going nowhere, but now we have that add item we can use. So we'll go here and we'll do URL add dash item. Okay. Back here, refresh the page, click on the plus, and there we go. Now it takes us to add item. We can do test item, quantity of 55, pick whatever we want, add item. And now we're getting an error saying WSGI request object has no attribute username. Okay, so there's a problem with our setting our instance user. So let's jump back over to that in our forms.py, or no, in our views.py inside of our get context. So what did I do wrong there? In our form valid, I mean down here. Oh, I put username. It should be user. That was just a typo on my end. We'll save that. So it should be form.instance.user equals self.request.user. And that should be what we want there. Okay. So we'll come back again. We'll refresh the page. Type in test item, quantity of 55. That's fine. Add item. And there we go. Now we have another item showing up there. Test item, 55, and the category of transportation. So that is all working. And now we can successfully add items here. We also have a go back button. We'll just cancel it and take us back here. Okay, now that we have that done, we need to go ahead and add an edit and delete button to edit or delete this row item, and then also add our alerts. So let's go ahead and get started with the edits. So to do this, we'll need to do a few things, but we'll start in our views, and we'll add a new view for an edit item, edit inventory item. So this will be pretty simple. What we can do is create a class, and we'll call it edit item. And then we want to go ahead and make sure, once again, that login is required. So we'll add login required mixin. And then we'll go ahead and use an update view, which is a generic view we can import from the top. So just like how we use create view right here, we can use update view to edit an existing item in the database. And that will come from our generic views. Up here, we'll add edit view, or not edit view, update view. Just like that. And now back down in our view, let's go ahead and add a few fields. So this would be pretty similar to our create view, minus these function overrides here. So first we'll go ahead and set our model. Our model will be equal to our inventory item, because that's the item we want to edit. We'll add a template name. And for the template name, we're going to go ahead and reuse our item form template name. So the same one we use in our add item, we can use that same form. And this will just pre-populate the fields for us so that we can see what was there previously, and then anything we change will then be updated. So we can go ahead and do inventory / item _ form.html like we did in our create view. Then we'll need a success URL once again. So once we successfully submit the form, where do we want to go? In this case, we'll use reverse lazy again to redirect us to the dashboard. Type in the name of dashboard. We look at our view, our item form view. You'll see all we're doing here is we're just loading the form, so we can load the exact same form. We'll still get access to this form variable by default, so that's all good there. And that is it for this update view class here. Or actually, I am forgetting one thing. I'm forgetting my form class. So let's go ahead and add form _ class. This will be equal to the inventory item form. So we actually need to go ahead and set this form once again. So make sure we put form class inventory item form to actually set that form. But with that added, that should be the end of that view. That's all we should need there. Let's go ahead and go to our URLs now and add a URL for this view. So right below our add item, actually first, let's go ahead and import edit. What do we call it? We call it edit, or yeah, edit item. That's what we call it. Edit item. And we'll add a new path. And this will be edit - item. And then we want to go ahead and add in our primary key. So we need to give it a primary key so it knows which item to update. And the way we can add this in our URL is by using less than greater than signs. Instead of here, we'll put PK to say we want to put a PK after our field. So this will be edit item /1/2. We'll replace all of this. So 1, 2, 3, whatever the ID of the item is in the database. We can also tell it that it needs to be an integer I do an int colon pk, and that will just tell it that we need to put an integer in there as the primary key. Now we'll go ahead and use that edit item view. And then once again, as underscore view, because it's a class-based view. And then we'll give it a name of edit-item. And that should be it for that URL. Now, if we go back here, you'll see we have an ID of 3 on this item right here. So if I were to go to edit item /3, you'll see now it loads that form and it pre-fills all that data we had before. So we're correctly getting the primary key from a URL. In this case, the primary key is 3. We're finding that item in the database and we're populating the fields here. If I change the quantity now to 56 and hit add item, I now see the quantity has been updated to 56. So we're correctly getting this data. We're pre-populating the form and then we're updating it once we submit it. Now the last thing we need to do for this is add a little button here so we actually get to it without going through the URL. So back in Sublime, if we go to our dashboard template, so down here, so looking at this again here, we have our headers here, then we have the body right here. This first one right here is just checking if it's empty, so that will be skipped in this case. And we'll go down through this for loop right here, create the items here. So for every item, we want to add a button for each item so we can put it inside of this for loop. I'll put it inside this TD right here, so it'll be right next to the category name. And inside of here, I'm gonna add just a link and add an href to this link. And this will point to the view we created. So we'll use a Django URL tag to do this. So we'll do URL, and then we'll put an edit-item to get the edit item. But since we also have the primary key field, we need to specify this here as well. So in Django, this is pretty easy. All we do is put a space and then put our primary key right here. In this case, it's item.id. So real quickly again, just to make sure that makes sense. This is the primary key. The ID field is the same as the PK field, and that's what's going in our URL. So this will how we'll grab which item to update. But with that there, that should be good. Now, put the closing tag, and then in here we'll just do edit, and then we'll add some classes as well, just so we can make it look better than the default. So we'll just make it look like a button. So we'll do btn-outline-secondary to do that. Back here, refresh the page, and now we have this edit button. We click on it, and then it takes us here to edit the item. Okay, perfect. So now let's go ahead and do the same thing, but for our delete item as well. So to do this, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and start by creating a new view. So go to our views.py. Now we can create a delete item view as well. So do a class delete item. We'll do login required mixed in once again because we want them to be logged in. Then we'll go ahead and use a delete view as well. And this delete view once again is just a generic view. We'll import it up here from our generic import delete view. And then we can go ahead and create our delete view down here. So what we'll do is we'll set our model once again to be the inventory item model. We'll set our template name. And this template will be like a kind of like a confirmation, I guess, template. We'll say, are you sure you want to delete this? So we'll make a new template for that. So inventory / I'll call it delete_item.html. And I'll come back and create that later. Then I want to go ahead and add a success URL. So once we delete it, where do you want to go? Once again, the same as before, we're going to go back to the dashboard. So we'll add that there. And then finally, the last thing we want to do is we're going to update the context object name. We could do this on any of these views that have custom data passed in, but we're only going to do on this one. So what this will do, we'll rename the default name of everything. So if we look in like our dashboard, for example, we set this to be item. If you don't set a name for something in like a generic view, it defaults to like object or obj or something like that. And so just to make things more clear, I'm going to default this to item again, to make it the same as our dashboard. But with those things added, that should be it. So now let's go ahead and create that inventory delete item template here. So we'll save this as delete_item.html. And this will be a pretty simple template. We'll do it real quick. So what we'll do first, extend the base template like we did on all of our templates. So inventory /base.html. And then I'm going to go ahead and do block content, and we'll add a div inside of here. This will wrap everything. And then down here, before I forget, I'll close off this block. We'll do in block content. Now inside of here, first we're gonna have a button that says go back. So we decide we don't want to delete this. We have a way to get out of this. So we'll do href equals a URL tag once again. It'll point back to our dashboard. So URL and then dashboard. Class of btn-outline-primary, my-3, mx-4, like our other go back buttons. We'll say go back, and we'll close off that a tag. Below this a tag, we're going to add a div. This will be the row for our main content here. And then inside of here, we're going to go ahead and create a form with a method of post. And it'll put a class like this to column. So do column-sm-11, column-md-4, mx-auto, mt-5. Okay. Inside this form here, first, since it's a post method form, we add our CSRF token. So do CSRF_token. Add that tag there. Otherwise, you'll get an error. So make sure you add that there. Next, we'll add an h1 with a class of fw-light. Font weight of light to make it a little lighter font, not as thick. We'll do are you sure you want to delete, and then we'll put a variable in here. So we'll do 2 curly braces to put a variable, and we'll do item.name. So this will say, are you sure you want to delete item to delete, or are you sure you want to delete test item, or whatever the name is in this column right here. Okay, with that in there, we can go ahead and what's a question mark to make it a question. We'll add the closing tag right there. Below this, we'll put a p tag with a class of font weight of light, once again, fw-light. And we'll say this cannot be undone. And close off that p tag. Close off the div, or close off the form. Close off that div right there. And that one goes to that one. Okay. Now, inside this form, we're going to add one more thing. We need to add an actual button to submit the form. So add a div right here. And then inside this div, we'll add a button with a class of btn-danger, and then we'll put delete and close off that button tag. And that should be it. So we'll save that. Now we'll go ahead and add our URL for this delete view. So we'll jump into our urls.py. We will add this right below here. But first we'll import our delete item. And then we'll add a new path. Delete item. And then once again, since we are deleting a specific item, we need to pass in a primary key again. So this will look the same as above, int::pk. Tell it we want a primary key that's an integer. Then we'll add delete item.as_view once again. And then we'll add a name equaling delete item. Add a trailing comma, save that. Okay, now let's go back to our dashboard and we'll add the button for it right here. So this will go right next to our edit button item, or edit item button. So we'll add an a tag here, add an href that goes to a Django URL tag, URL, it'll be delete-item. And then once again, we need to add in the item.id because we're passing the primary key into the field. Then we'll do class equals btn-secondary. Then we'll add delete as a text. And we'll save that. Oh, then we'll close off the a tag, and then we'll save that. Okay, come back here, refresh the page. We're getting an error, delete item. Let's check our URLs real quick. I put delete underscore item. Let's make that a dash to make it consistent. Refresh the page, and there we go. So now we have our edit button, and we have a delete button. Click on it. Now it takes us to this page here, and it says, are you sure you want to delete this item? If we hit delete, and then deletes it and takes us back to the dashboard. So everything is working correctly. We now have an edit function working and a delete function working. The last thing we need to do for this project is get the alerts working. So when a quantity goes below a certain amount, we want to go ahead and show an alert. So this will require us updating our dashboard or a dashboard view to handle that logic. So if we go into our dashboard view in our views.py, come here to our dashboard, we want to do a few different things here. We want to add like a filter on our items we're getting here. Right now we're getting just all of them with the user. We want to filter by low inventory as well to see which ones are below a certain inventory level. Now, what is that level? Well, we'll set a constant in our settings.py. So at the bottom of my settings.py file, I'm just going to add a low underscore inventory, or low quantity. That's what we're checking, low quantity. I'll set to 3. So if we go below 3, this should alert us that the inventory is low. So now back in our dashboard dashboard view, we can filter for our low inventory items as well. So we'll get all the items, display them. We also want to get a separate filter down here to get the low inventory items. So what we'll do here is do low underscore inventory equals inventory item dot objects dot filter, and this filter will filter two things. First, we want to get the same ones we had before, so all of the user items. So we'll do user equals self.request.user.id, like we did in the above filter. We also want to do quantity double underscore LTE less than or equal to equals low quantity, and we'll import that. So this right here is the less than or equal to, is this LTE. So we can filter things using this double underscore syntax. You can find in the Django documentation, there's also different things you can do. In this case, though, we want to check if this number is less than or equal to our low quantity number, which we'll import from our settings. Inventory management dot settings import low quantity. Okay, I'll double check this still works. Okay. And now we have our low quantity items. We can check if that total count in this is more than 0, which means we have low inventory items. Then we're going to go ahead and show an alert using the Django messages system. So I'm going to type this out, then I'll explain it. So if low underscore inventory dot count, to get the count of that query, is greater than 0. And then we'll say if low inventory dot count is greater than 1, then we're going to go ahead and show a message. And then else, we're going to show a different message. So what I'm doing here is just saying, okay, if we have more than one alert, if you have more than 0, we want to show an alert. If it's more than 1, we're going to make this message plural. And if not, we'll make it singular, just so the grammar makes sense, I guess. And so we can use messages, this Django messages, by importing it from django.contrib import messages. Now I'll explain messages here in a second. Let's go ahead and just type this out first so we can see what it's doing. Hopefully that'll make it make a little more sense. So we'll do messages.error request f-string, and we'll do our low inventory count number. So low inventory.count to get the exact number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. Items have low inventory. And then on this one down here, this is if it's equal to 1, I guess. This one will be 2 or more. And this one down here will be 1. So we can just do a singular message of messages.error. And we'll do request. And then we'll do s-string once again. Low inventory. Then we'll do dot count. Item has low inventory. Like that. Okay, and that should be it for that line. Okay, and so messages. Let's go ahead and open up Django's documentation. And you'll see here we have the Django messages framework. And so right here, you can kind of see a quick overview on what the message framework is. It allows us to save a message temporarily in one request and retrieve it for display in another, which will be the next request when we load the next the view. And we have these different levels: info, warning, or error. In our case, we're using error because we're showing that there's a kind of like a big issue that we want to look at, which is low inventory. And you can look through the different middleware needed required for this, and how we can store them. There's different ways we can configure these things, but we can use the default by just importing messages. So I'll put a link to this if you want to customize it more. But for our example, it's not really necessary. All we gotta do is import django.contrib and import messages from that. So down here, we're creating a message, and we can create one of those different levels. by doing dot the level name, in this case error. And then we're saying the request we want to store it in, and then we're going ahead and giving the message itself, which is the number of items that have low inventory. That's what we're doing here in messages. I'm going to go ahead and show you how it works in the template here in a little bit. But that's how we create a message. That's how we send one to store, and then next we'll display it in our template. But before we do that, let's go ahead and finish out this view. So now that we have this low inventory count set up, we're going to go ahead and do this filter one more time. But now we're going to go ahead and just get a list of the values. So instead of just getting this whole query set, you can print it out and you can see that it's returning the entire item and all the stuff on it. Instead of getting that, we want to get a list of the IDs. And these IDs we're going to put into our context to actually load in our template. And then we'll use that to set some logic to change the color of our item count in our template. So it doesn't make sense. Hopefully it will once we do it. So let's go ahead and just type it out, and then hopefully that will clear up what that means. So first we'll go ahead and do a low inventory IDs equals the same query, inventory item dot objects dot filter. And inside here we can do user equals self.request.user.id. Then we'll have quantity _LTE again equals low quantity. And then instead of just leaving like this, let's return just all the items in a query set. Instead, we can do dot values _ list. We can pass an ID, and we'll pass in flat equals true. So what we're doing here is we're creating a list of values from this query set, and we're using the ID as the value, so just the number for the primary key. And then what this will return, just this alone, return like a tuple with like a one tuple of just the ID. But to get rid of that and return just a list of the items, we put flat equals true. That returns just a query set that's just a list of all of the IDs that have low inventory. Now that we have that, we can add that to our context over here. So we added the items in. We can also add in the low inventory _ IDs. I set that equal to low inventory IDs. Now we'll have access to this, and we can now set that logic in our template. So now that we have our low inventory set up and ready to go, we need to do two things. First, we need to go ahead and show these messages, and then we also need to change the color of our count in our template. We'll make it red or something if it's low inventory, so you can visually see which ones are low. So now to make these changes, we need to go into our dashboard template. So first, let's go ahead and show our messages. So we'll do that here at the top. So if we have messages on a request, they'll automatically be stored in a variable called messages. And that will hold all the messages available. So we can show these by doing this. We can create a template tag here, and we'll do if messages. So if there's messages that exist, then what we want to do, we'll create a div to show these within the class of row empty -3. And now inside of this div here, we'll go ahead and loop over all of the messages. So we'll do for messages for message in messages. So we're creating a message variable for each of our messages. Then we'll check if message.tags is equal to error. This will be the level. In this case, ours was message.error, so it will show a tag of error on these messages. We have the message with a tag of error, then we know it's a low inventory count message. It will create a div of a class. We'll create a column, md-10, column -12, mx-auto, and then we'll do alert and alert danger. Those are some bootstrap classes to show just like an alert, which works out well for our messages. So we'll go ahead and put that there. Now inside of this div here, we're going to go ahead and now show the message, because now we've already showed that we know this is an error message, and so we know it's one of our low inventory counts. So we can go ahead and just put this alert-danger class, which will make it like a red color. Then over here, we can put in curly braces, message, to then show that message. And then we'll go ahead and put else in case we ever want to extend this application and do something that's not a low inventory message, some other alert. What we can do here is we can go ahead and actually we'll do an else. So in this case, if we don't have an error tag of error or a message tag of error, then we know we have some other type of message. I'm going to go ahead and copy this div, paste it here. and change this from alert-danger to alert/success. We'll just show like a green success message if we have an error message there. And then once again, I'm going to go ahead and put the message in there and then close that off. Then we'll need to go ahead and do the end if and close off all of our template tags. So end if, we close off the for tag as well. This will be our end for. And then we also have close off this div now. So this div will be closed off right here. Then you go ahead and close off this final if statement from up here. And that can be done with another end if. Okay, so that's how we show messages. So using the messages framework involves two steps. It involves creating the messages and putting them on the request right here. I'm using a messages.error.info.whatever with passing the request and also the message we want to actually show. And then in the template, you have to actually loop over all of the messages. So back in our dashboard, loop over all the messages. First, check if there are messages. Loop over all the messages, and then write any logic you want to display it. In this case, if it has a tag of error, which we use message.error, then we want to go ahead and show an alert danger. Otherwise, we want to go ahead and just show the alert success. And so that's how you show a message. I'm using the messages framework. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, let me know and I'll try to help out with any questions you might have. But that is all that we're doing there. Let's go ahead and test this out and see if it works. Let's go ahead and delete this item. We'll create a new item called low inventory, quantity of 2, and add that item. Now we're getting an error saying message is not defined. Let's double check that. So in our views, oh, that's just a typo on my end here. I put messages, I put message right here. This should be messages as well. Okay. Back here, refresh the page, and there we go. Now we have this one item has low inventory alert. If we edit this and just do test item and change this to like 5, that's above 3. So now that alert goes away. So now we're correctly showing alerts based off of if it's a low inventory item or not. And if we were to add more than one, we should get more than one. So we add another item, test 2, quantity of 2, add that, we get one item. If we edit this one with 5 and do like 1 or anything 3 or less, now it has 2 items have low inventory. So now our alerts are working correctly. Now let's go ahead and change the color of this to be red if it's low. And we'll go ahead and maybe show green or something if it's not low. So back in my template, my dashboard template, we can edit this down here where we're showing the actual quantity in this line right here. So if you remember from what we did in our view, we created this low inventory IDs list. So now what we can do is for each inventory item, we can check if the ID is in this list. If it is, we know it has low inventory. So what we'll do here is we'll put an if statement around this line. If item.id in low inventory ID. So if that item is in that list, then we know we need to show it as a red color. So then on here, we'll add a class of text-danger, which is a bootstrap class, which will make it a red color for us. Then we can go ahead and do an else. We'll go ahead and copy this line down, but we'll change the class from text-danger to text-success. And then we gotta make sure we close off the if statement by doing an end if at the bottom. End if, and save it. Now we come back here, refresh the page. Now we get red. If we go ahead and edit one of these to be 100 and save that, it's green. And now we have one item's low inventory. You can see the one low inventory item by the text that's red, and the one that's not is green. Perfect. So now we can correctly set up our alerts to show us that we have low inventory. If any of that was confusing, let me know and I'll try to explain it a little bit more. But hopefully that made sense. All we had to do was, create a message, display the message, and then just write some logic to change the text color based on that ID list.